There we go. What's up, guys? So give me 1 second. Let me get sorted here. Boxing news today. Live from my studio. Leaving. All right, cool. I'm happy with that. Excuse me. We'll wait about a minute here. We'll get started. Representing Youngstown, City of Champions. Name 2 world champions from Youngstown, Ohio. I'll wait. 2. Name 2 world champions. I'll give you the answers. If you get them right, I'll send you a free copy of my latest book. 2 world champions from Youngstown. This is yours. I'll send it to you. Guys, we did a live yesterday, and as soon as I got off of it, we got the news that Cody Crowley was out of his fight with Jaron Ennis. And so I did some lives during my walk. We talked about it, and up-to-date news on it. We do know that Crowley did pass a physical. He knew that he had eye issues. He knew that he wasn't going to pass this eye exam. He even brought it up in the presser a couple weeks ago. And now, obviously, you're bummed out for Crowley. We're bummed out for Boots, all the fighters on the undercard. But if you go to Ennis's Instagram right now, if you've been following him on social media, he's still in training camp, and he says that the fight card is still going down. It's still taking place in about 5 weeks in Philadelphia, and we're just left to speculate. We don't know who it's going to be paired up with. Names, we've been throwing names out. You know who I want. I want to see Virgil, but that probably is highly unlikely. We know Ortiz was supposed to fight August 3rd against Tim Tszyu. That fight fell through due to Tszyu's health. His scalp stitches hadn't healed yet. And we also know Virgil isn't settled in at 154. It's not like he's a huge guy who can't cut down to 47. We do know he has had health issues in the past, so 54 is where he wants to be. But we know Boots isn't a small guy. We know he cuts a lot of weight. If you ever meet Jaron Ennis in person, he's a big boy. It's shocking that he makes 47. And sometimes just with how he looks, we forget that he's only in his mid-20s. He looks like he's he looks like he's in his mid-30s. Got to be honest with you. What's up with the boxers having one problems when they fight for the IBF belt? Having one, I know. Who are we referencing here for the IBF? That IBF belt, we do got we just did the video at Subaru Matias and Liam Perro. That fight's going down June 15th in Puerto Rico. IBF belt is on the line. Fingers crossed, Addy, that neither Perro nor Matias pull out due to an eye injury. I know, Errol Spence. Yeah, we're going to talk about Errol in a second. He just put up a video. Guys, if you're not following us on Facebook or Instagram, Boxing News Today, do it now. What we're going to do is I'm going to play you some up-to-date boxing news that you're not going to be able to find online. The major boxing sites online, if you're reading them, boxingnews.com, Boxing24, there's some other ones. They're not really up-to-date, and the way they're written, very one-side opinionated. I hate reading boxing content to where the writer is talking shit about a fighter. So what I like to do with these live streams is I'm going to tell you a non-opinionated approach. Let's cover Jaron Ennis first, because we were talking about it wouldn't be unlikely for Boots and Virgil to fight at 154, right? The weight seems like it would make sense. The problem with that is the sanctioning bodies and us fight fans, we don't get to make the fights, right? And it just seems like at the stage in their career, they're not going to fight. They'll probably fight down the road. Now, who else is there for Boots? If we go to his Instagram, like I said, he just posted, whether it's Cody or not, I'm still fighting. We're still on. And that was but just 7 hours ago, he goes 12 hours of sparring in the bag with 3 different people. Jaron Ennis's Instagram. So he must know something that we don't know. That's usually the case when fighters pull out. They already probably had a backup. It's not like Ennis and Crowley's camp go into these contracts blindsided. So is he fighting Chisoko? I saw you wrote that the other day. I thought you were playing. And I thought you were kidding when you said that he was fighting Chisoko. But I don't know with you, so now you're making me Google it, and we'll see in a second. But Either or, it seems like it's going to be still a good day for the Philly fans. My buddy Keith lives in Philadelphia. He's a boxing head, and he's talking about how that place is already almost sold out. I knew you were trolling, man. You know, I'll give you your dude. You're hilarious. Hopefully, you're doing stand up somewhere. But yeah, my buddy Keith, who lives in Philly, was saying that Philly has showed out for Boots. That fight is already almost sold out, that arena. And that's why it was kind of frustrating for all the fight fans, whether you're a Boots Ennis fan or not, when we heard that Crowley pulled out, because we know it's been almost impossible for Boots to find fights. We know that he just signed with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, and we know what that means for a fighter with the promotion, with the eyes, and he gets his homecoming fight with all this promotion in Philly, and then his opponent pulls out. So it's good to see that Jaron is, the name isn't out yet, but it seems like there is an opponent still for July 13th. It's all speculation if you go to boxinginsider.com, etc. Now, moving on, did you guys see the Errol Spence Jr. and Frank Martin interview? They gave a little bit of an interview. Frank Martin's obviously being asked about the upcoming Tank Davis fight. He's a 6-1 underdog. Now, I don't know what people see that I don't see, but a lot of people I'm talking to claims that Frank that he has a good chance of winning that fight. I don't know. We'll see, but let me play you a clip from Errol Spence Jr.
Accordingly, and move him to the top of which he is now.
Core, if you win Saturday.
Yeah. I'll fight anybody at 135. Shit, when they win, it's got to be a rematch. So Shakur got to wait.
Okay, so Frank, if you win, there potentially could be a rematch between you and Tank.
Yeah, it's a rematch for sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Right,
so how much do we put into rematch clauses? We know we can't trust them. We saw just exactly what happened with the rematch clauses. Every time we see a fighter that we like lose or win, it rarely ever takes place. Errol, Bud, for whatever reason, we know why those fights don't take place. Tim Tszyu, Seb Fendora. Going into the fight, everyone talks about a rematch clause. We know they're both injured. We know why they don't take place. I found it interesting that Errol Spence Jr. though was speaking like indefinites. I get it that you're back your boy. You're gonna back Frank. He's claiming that it's gonna be no doubt that he's beaten Tank, but also they mentioned Shakur Stevenson to fight Frank. Do you guys remember when that fight was announced last November 2023? We had there were flyers made. We were posting them in our boxing groups. Shakur Stevenson and Frank Martin agreed to a fight. And then when it fell through, Shakur got on social media talking about how it was Frank Martin that pulled out and how it was Frank Martin that was ducking and that the money wasn't right. And now all of a sudden Shakur is asking for that fight and Errol is saying that Shakur is going to have to wait. It's just wild to see these are the politics that as fight fans and fans of the sport that we get frustrated on. And I don't think anyone is ducking anybody. I just find it interesting that Shakur goes from a guy saying that Frank bailed for that fight, and now Shakur's asking for that fight. Did you guys hear about Eminem? Before we get to Eminem, let's talk about Turki Al-Sheikh. I woke up this morning. You guys have to remember I'm streaming from Australia, so it is my Thursday at 11:50 a.m. When I woke up, I usually wake up at 6 a.m. It is you guys in America Wednesday, I think, afternoon. So I got the notification this morning that the card is set, the August 3rd Riyadh season in LA card set. Obviously, we lost Virgil Ortiz and Tim Tszyu, and we lost Deontay Wilder's speculative fight against Jared Anderson. But what they did announce today, here's the updated card. Andy Cruz versus Antonio Moran. David Morrell Jr. versus Kalajic. Martin Bacol is facing Big Baby Anderson, and I found that interesting. That's not going to be an easy fight for Anderson. We got Andy Ruiz. The big fella is back. He's fighting Jarrell Miller. And then Pitbull Cruz, Jose Valenzuela. People love Rayo. And then obviously at the top of that is Bud versus Madrimov. So they released this today. That's the 5-on-5. If you guys are following boxing news today on Instagram and Facebook, you would have seen this post. Now, he also releases – this guy knows how to get headlines, man. Where did Al-Sheikh come from, which is crazy? Now, I'm going to be like everyone else and say that he's been a godsend for boxing. You know, deep pockets means more opportunities and more fights. But call me old fashioned. I don't know. I don't want to say I don't trust him, but I feel like the carpet's going to be pulled from underneath our feet the minute we get comfortable. All of a sudden, he's going to say, I'm not going to tell you what I think he's going to say, but it's going to be like, no more boxing for the rest of the world. Like, that's the conspiracy theorist to me. If you look at in the 1960s, so for instance, Malik Zinad is from Libya. In the late 1960s, the Libyans had an amazing Olympic team. There's footage of their Olympic champion training with Muhammad Ali. And then in the 1970s, as Gaddafi, their leader, was coming into power, he banned all combat sports. So Libya went from a kind of up-and-coming powerhouse in boxing to not allowed to box for decades. And this is why Malik Zinad, the guy who just fought Dimitri Bivol, had to flee Libya, goes to live in Malta, and then, his story is fascinating. He obviously didn't get that victory. But I reference that because when I hear a guy like Turki Al-Sheikh, and I grew up, I'm 42. I started boxing in 1989 when I was 7, my hometown in Youngstown, Ohio. And I love boxing, if you couldn't tell. There's a guy who comes out of nowhere. Boxing's a small little fraternity, whether it's the media guys, the writers, the athletes, the coaches, the promoters. Everybody knows kind of everybody. It's a bit incestual like that over time. So when you got like Turki Al-Sheikh, who literally came out of nowhere 2 years ago, who had heard of him? All of a sudden, he's the godfather and savior of boxing, and we're all just supposed to just trust the guy right off the bat. Man, that's not how I'm wired. So, like, by nature, I'm a bit of a contrarian. You could ask my girlfriend, like, she'll say, let's try this new thing to eat. And I'll say, no, I don't want it. I'll do pushback. And then all of a sudden, a couple days pass, and then all of a sudden I'll eat. And she goes, you always do that. Why don't you just agree with me off jump? I'm like, no, I got to push back naturally. It's part of my DNA. So Turki Al-Sheikh, I don't trust him. I don't know why. It has nothing to do with where he comes from. It has everything to do with I never heard of him in boxing. Anyway, he releases today. I'm on a rant, so I apologize about this. Eminem. So not only is that card released, Riyadh season, man, they are dropping the paper. Now they're not just promoting the card. They're telling America, hey, we know you Americans love Eminem. We know Eminem just released some new tracks. We know that he walked out Bud Crawford against Errol Spence Jr., and he's coming back. So that's a big announcement. I'm excited for what they're doing. I'm just still kind of like not 100% bought in. What's their end game? And, he puts all this money. They're doing the Saudi Arabia card with the UFC and MMA. And we know all the shit Dana White has talked in the past about Bob Arum, Top Rank, all the shit he used to talk about, Oscar De La Hoya. And now Turki Al-Sheikh goes from 1 week to, shaking hands with Alexander Usyk and shaking hands with Tyson Fury and Bud Crawford. To the next week, he has Dana White and the UFC there. Robert Whittaker's headlining a fight with Khamzat Chimaev, and that's a huge card. And, I spent years writing about the UFC and MMA, so I'm also an MMA fan. It's just that I kind of like Turki to pick side. I don't know how I feel about him doing it I don't know. I just don't know if I trust him yet. We'll see. Only time will tell. Danny Jacobs is back, the Miracle Man. I used to work a lot with Chris Algieri. If you followed my first podcast called Ungoogleable, Algieri was a common reoccurring guest on my show. And he's a nutritionist. Algieri's career, he was a world champion. He had that amazing fight against the Siberian Rocky. I don't know if you've ever seen that fight. It's when Chris became a world champion. He fought, Manny Pacquiao, Errol Spence Jr., Conor Benn, but he's a nutritionist. And Algieri used to work with Danny Jacobs, the Miracle Man. So Danny Jacobs is back July 6th. He's fighting Sugar Shane Mosley's son, Shane Mosley Jr., and they're talking title eliminator. That fight is on the undercard of Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal boxing. Now, I wasn't going to watch it. Nothing for a boxing head. Nothing is more frustrating to me than watching two over-the-hill retired MMA fighters put the gloves on a box. It's just like watching bad soccer, and I'm not a soccer guy, but I'll watch the World Cup at the highest level. I'm not a tennis guy, but I'll watch the Grand Slams. My point is, when you watch bad soccer, it's shit. When you watch good soccer, it's awesome. Same with fighting. When you watch bad boxing or bad MMA, it's garbage. So Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz, I have no interest in watching them box. But now, this is the genius in marketing. Maybe we call this the Jake Paul effect. You throw Shane Mosley Jr. and Danny Jacobs, the Miracle Man, on that undercard. Now I'll probably be forced to watch it or at least purchase the pay-per-view. So that's happening, guys. If you know anything about Danny Jacobs' story, very inspirational one. This weekend, this Saturday morning, I'll be live streaming here in Sydney. This will be if you're in America, I keep saying you. If you're in America, your Friday night, we got Blair Cobbs versus Adrian Broner. I did the video yesterday on YouTube. It's not doing that well, but it's all good. And it's AB versus Cobbs. Their press conference yesterday was pretty hilarious. I want to play you this puppet thing. I want to play you this thing Cobbs posted today. All right, here we go.
Nigga, and me and my nigga, we done already beat bodies, and they still looking for me. And every charge been acquitted, my nigga.
Gary, why would Adrian Broner say that him and his homies have killed people?
He in here.
I'll tell you why. Because he's a fucking moron. And Blair the Flair is gonna whoop his ass.
I kill people. Remember when I spent all my money on World Star videos?
So, yeah, I mean, say what you want about Blair Cobbs, but he takes trolling to the next level. He makes Ryan Garcia's trolling look literally elementary. That was really good, and his editing's good. And if you watch him at the press conferences, this guy's out of his mind, but I think in all of the best ways. It's what's part of the beautiful part about boxing is you need characters like Blair Cobbs. I don't know if he's going to beat Broner. I'm a bit of a hopeless romantic when it comes to how I live my life and with sports. So I love a comeback story. I love the story of Cobbs being a homeless guy. He was on the run. His family was on the run from the FBI in America in the early 2000s. They flee to Mexico. So he picks up the sport in Mexico. And then as a younger adult, he moves to Vegas, was homeless, and now he's putting himself in a position for the biggest fight of his career against a former 4-time world champion in 4 divisions, Adrian Broner. Let me play you this bit of Broner, AB. I'm an Ohio guy. I grew up in Northeast Ohio. Broner was coming up through the amateur ranks in Ohio. He's from the opposite side of the state in Cincinnati. This is AB getting interviewed as a 12-year-old.
Well, Broner was already regarded as a prodigy at Mount Auburn.
What do you think you guys would be doing if you weren't here in the gym boxing?
A lot of bad things.
Like what?
Trying to rob people, trying to break the cars.
Such a age. You're not be doing that.
Probably. You think? Probably. If you hang around so many people like that, you probably will.
Man, people forget about AB. And, I like looking back on these old videos. AB's been in the game for a long, long time. It's one of his biggest beefs with Cobbs is that he thinks that Cobbs hasn't done anything in the game. And when you look at U.S. amateur boxing, Ohio always produces young kids who come up through the ranks. Sean Porter's one of them. My boy Kelly Pavlik's another one of them. And there's something about boxers, especially in America, that there's relevance and almost revelry about a kid who starts at a younger age. And it's the same beef Tank has with Frank. He's like, dude, Frank didn't pick the gloves up until he was 18. Now, that's nobody's fault. We don't know what sort of their life's journey led them to either starting or stopping. But Tank has that same mindset that AB has to where like, oh, Frank picked the gloves up at 18. Cobbs picked the gloves up seriously in his late teens. I've been doing this since I was 7, since I was 8. There's no way this dude's going to beat me. And that's kind of a thing. Is that true? We'll see. Especially, what do we always say on boxing? What have you done for me lately? We'll see June 15th, Frank Martin versus Tank. And we'll see this in 2 days when we got Cobbs versus AB. AB's obviously not that 21-year-old anymore. He has some years on him. He's gone up in weight. And, being a lighter fighter, he's only 5'6". This fight's taking place at welterweight 147, and Cobbs is 5'11". So Cobbs is going to be the taller dude, longer reach, and from a round or at least journey experience, even though they're both 34, Cobbs will be the younger guy in terms of miles. And Cobbs doesn't seem like the type to get fat. He's always in shape. He talks about taking care of his body, and we know that AB historically over the last 10 years really hasn't done that. So leads me up to what else we got going? I guarantee when I'm going to cut this stream off, something's going to be popping. This is how it always works, and then I'm going to have to do another one. But before I get you guys out of here, I just put the video up about Subriel Matias. It's on the channel. 5 things you either knew or didn't know about Subriel Matias. He's fighting Liam Perro in Puerto Rico. June 15th. His IBF belt at 140 pounds is on the line. 4 champions at 140. I think that Matias is probably the most underrated. Imagine if Matias spoke English. I know that this isn't supposed to sound like a controversial issue, but I feel for how dangerous he is, 20-1. His only loss he avenged. He lost to Nyanyan by decision, and then 3 fights later, he knocks Nyanyan out. 20-1, 20 knockouts, 100% knockout to win ratio, IBF world champion, the #1 rated fighter at 140 pounds in the world. And I just feel like he's a little bit underrated. A lot of his naysayers say that he's there to get hit. His footwork, it isn't that great. But what I say is he's not a defensive fighter. He's not going to counterbox you. We know what he wants to do. He's a knockout artist. So why would he move away from you? And he does have a granite chin. He'll take one to give one. And over his whole career, he's given way more than he's taken. I'm excited about that fight. Don't sleep on Liam Perro. Perro is bigger than you guys think. Liam Perro carries around muscle. He has to cut down to make that 140. And we saw what he did against Montana Love. A couple fights before that, Jeff Fennick, if you're familiar with Australian boxing, Fennick's a Hall of Famer, used to train Tyson later on in Tyson's career. And Fennick had a kid named Brock Jarvis. Brock Jarvis bodied up, undefeated. And it kind of would put Liam Perro on the map in my eyes. First round knockout, Perro just bulldogs him, bullies him, and knocks this young up-and-comer stud out with 1 punch. So don't sleep on Liam Perro. He has a high fight IQ. His feet are good. His hands are good. It's going to be a good fight, and he's going to come in there bigger than people think, and I'm excited about that one. So stay tuned. I'm going to do a prediction video coming up on who I like, and I'm going to start doing more of my predictions without being as controversial as some of the other YouTubers are. It gets frustrating when you go to a YouTuber's boxing channel and they're wearing, you know, it's all about like smoke and mirrors, and they're purposely talking trash on a guy just to get the fan base of the other guy. I'll never do that. And if you find me doing that, call me out. All right, guys. Peace.